Discover the truth. They're lying. Discover the truth. Oh, they lie. Better know who you are. Discover the truth. 'Cause the truth don't change. No, the truth don't change. It remains the same. Better know who you are. Discover the truth.
What's all the talk about being black and Indian? I'm half this, half that, you must be kidding. Original, we the first to do it. And all these other nations are just our children. Even the pale skin was made in our image. Read the book of Ruth and check out your lineage. It's the melanin that gives us a dark complexion. That's a gene, no color, color separation. The Willie Lynch let it work to perfection. 2000 something and y'all still guessing. Don't know your nationality or your family tree, 'cause you refuse to listen to the prophet you are lead. So I put it in a rap to a mad production. So while your head bobbing, you can start to learning something. A great importance, there's so much to learn. Rewind and track and soak it in, knowledge is born.
Better know who you are. Discover the truth. 'Cause the truth don't change. No, the truth don't change. It remains the same. Better know who you are. Discover
They got
the
us
truth.
working like slaves for a couple of dollars. Like Marvin said, it make me wanna holler. How they doing? My life is straight trife. They robbing me without a gun or a knife. Hey, what I needed was Propia persona. I'm blowing the system. Come and get me, your honor. Standing on all law, the rawest you ever saw. Guess what? United States bankrupt since 34. You was played with your straw.
What's going on, people? Once again, you turned into the best. This is the Think Tank Show right here on TV 33 WHPR. I'm your host, Brother A. Sutton Bay. As I told y'all before a couple weeks ago, we was going to revisit a particular topic that we started off with a couple of weeks ago with a book called Overcoming Emotional Cancer. The topic is something that you just don't fly by. You don't breeze by. And that topic is sexual assault in our community, on our children, our women, and in some cases, our young brothers. But they fall in the category of our children. It's not an easy topic, and anytime that you have someone who is willing to put that particular demon out there in the public so that they can see people or allow people to see their scars and where they have been and what they have suffered, you have to applaud that, and you have to go extra mile to support that particular come up, because everybody that's out there that has been sexually assaulted is a survivor. And some people take it to a whole nother level of being a survivor. They take it to being a warrior, and that warrior ability is based on them wanting to survive what they went through, the tragedy that they went through in life. And in that tragedy and of being sexually abused, the things that you go through after that trauma, like alcoholism, drug abuse, etc., is something that is a cancer. Some people cut on themselves. Some people eat food and become obese. It's a lot of different, I guess you could say, post-traumatic stress disorders that come with being faced with that particular demon of sexual assault. And it's not a joke. And one of the things that I think we have to get past as a community, our community and the urban community, is keeping our mouth closed and keeping the business in the family. People have to speak up. People have to be man enough and woman enough to let that particular demon out, so that we can identify what that particular demon look like, so that the next sister or the next grandmother can identify the signs of one of their loved ones who is being sexually assaulted within the family. And I did some research, and from what I've come up with, most cases, the woman or the child that is sexually assaulted by someone that they know. That's the highest percentage of sexual assault. They're assaulted by someone they know. A lot of mothers out there, they have boyfriends and they constantly have new boyfriends, and they have male friends and they have them around their little young children, especially young girls between the ages of 5 to 12. And that's dangerous because you don't know what that person is thinking. You don't really know who that man is, and in some cases who that woman is, because you have had, or you do have, women who sexually abuse children as well. Even though it's the ratio of women sexually abusing children versus men is not as high, but it happens. So you have to be careful about who you bringing into the life of your children, because your children are precious. And one thing about a child molester, they are extremely manipulative and they're cunning, and they know how to go behind a proverbial veil, meaning pulling the veil behind their demon, and to put on this facade and this front as if they're the nicest human being on this planet and the most trustworthy person on this planet. And that in most cases end up being the demon. They end up being the one that is the sexual abuser within the family, and or just in the neighborhood in general. So you can never put your guard down, especially when you're talking about our children. And that's what this particular book, Overcoming Emotional Cancer, is about, or was written about. And it was written by our sister Carla Gunter, who is having a book signing slash seminar October the 9th down at Nandi's Knowledge Cafe, which is located at 12511 Woodward Avenue. And she's going to be able to, you're going to be able to hear her talk. You're going to be able to do Q&A. There's a lot of things that's going to be accessible intimately to you if you be there with her. You can be able to even purchase the book, get the book signed, take pictures. But what's important is that you come out and you hear her testimony. You come out and you're able to ask questions. But you can do that today. You can utilize that same energy today by calling in and talking with Carla, who is with us today. But it's not easy. It's not easy. You got to always understand, anytime someone is willing to go to this extreme, write a book, come on television, do seminars, book signings, etc., etc., that within itself, it shows that they have heart and they have passion of helping other people not to have to go through what it is that they went through in their traumatic ordeal, and to shine some light on the signs that every parent should look for within the household and even in the neighborhood. And I think one of the things that I'm going to have to do, because I wanted to give you an announcement today, but I'm gonna have to wait until the next time we have Carla here with us, because we're definitely going to be continuing to have this conversation on this particular platform, the Think Tank Show, until the book signing slash speaking engagement. But we have therapists, or I have a therapist who is willing to participate in this whole program that we had, and she wasn't able to make it today because she had a meeting with the feds, because she's going to be taking on criminals. They're going to be taking on sex offenders from the federal level, those who have been involved in sex trafficking, etc., etc. So you're going to be able to get some clinical understanding on the mind of a sex offender, and you're going to be able to get a look at how the professionals actually have analyzed and have done research and studied the mind of pedophiles. And what we have to understand within our community is that it's more rampant than what we think. It's more rampant than what we want to believe. I understand that Years ago, you used to hear certain crimes against children, and automatically it came to our mind that it was an old Caucasian man running around with candy, etc., etc. Well, that's the problem with stereotypes, and in most cases, stereotypes is not accurate. Uh, a stereotype is based on uh, a theory, or is based on a philosophy that is not necessarily founded on acute, accurate study of the perpetrators of certain crimes. And prime example, and a lot of times it just throws us for a loop, and prime example is with the DC sniper. I don't think it was anybody in the United States of America, even our community, that didn't think that it was some Caucasian man running around just picking people off. And when they seen that it was two brothers, we was all shocked. And that's, in most cases, I think that's what's going on in our community. When it happens to you, or to your daughter, or to your son, you're so in shock, to whereas, and embarrassed, to you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to go to the police, you don't want to seek help, etc., etc. And therein lies the danger. You have to have courage enough to get your children help, get yourself some help, and to get that particular monster off the streets. So please, by all means, I don't care what the pedophile says, I don't care how he threatens you, I don't care what the rapist says and how he threatens you or she threatens you. Always tell somebody. Always. Once you have survived that ordeal and that particular monster you have gotten away from it, make sure that you go and you tell somebody. And if you are somebody that's out there that has been abused for years and has never told anybody, now is the time. Now is the time to speak up. Now is the time to tell somebody of importance that you love and that you trust, that can help you, walk you through it, to get you some help, and to get that particular individual off the streets. Because 10 times out of 10, if he or she done it to you, they're doing it to somebody else. And sex offenders don't stop until they caught. And arguably, some would say it's a percentile of some type of sex offenders that would constantly reoffend. You know, some people would say that there's no help for pedophiles. Some people say that people who commit crimes against children, they have done it to other children before they got caught, the time that they did get caught. And when they get out, they eventually going to reoffend again. They are the highest percentile of recidivism in any other crime within the judicial system, hands down. And that's scary. And that's something that we must think about, because one of the things that's really disturbing to me is that a person who committed a crime towards a child, a sex crime against a child, receive 2 years or 18 months or probation. And a brother or a sister who get caught with some crack cocaine or some heroin, they get 20 years or 30 years. Now I understand the poison, crack and heroin, etc., and what drugs is doing to our community, and I understand that, you know, that is a serious situation. But when you're talking about scarring the psyche of a baby, and this particular child is eventually going to grow up and become a prostitute, going to be addicted to drugs, alcohol, be a criminal, going to be angry, and or in most cases they mimic that particular crime as they grow up in life. So that's some of the important reasons why I would say that if you are somebody that's out there right now that has been sexually assaulted and you haven't told anybody because you are afraid, or your daughter or your son told you that this happened and you don't believe them because they lie all the time, or whatever the situation may be, that you're rationalizing, that you're using to rationalize not to believe them or to tell anybody, I'm asking you to just think twice, because children just don't make those type of lies up. Anything can happen, arguably. Yes, I understand that anything can happen, but you should always believe your child when they say that they have been sexually assaulted by your boyfriend, by your uncle, by the cousin, what have you. Always believe the child. Never brush it off as, oh, they just talking. So, I mean, I can go on and on, but before I even continue to go, because we got the rest of the day after we deal with the Morris Thought, we're going to be joined with Sister Carla Gunther, who is the author of Overcoming Emotional Cancer, And we got our sister Terry, and she's also with us today. And we're going to get down into this particular topic, and we're going to try to educate some people and encourage some people out there to step up and do the right thing for the sake of themselves and their family. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera and the microphone over to our sister on the next set, Sister Maxim Cook Bay, for the Moorish Thought. Islam, sister.
Islam, it is indeed a pleasure to be here today. Allah, the Father in the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Jurali. Amen. I like to give praises to Allah, the great God of the universe. I give honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali, founder of the Moorish Science Above America, Incorporated. I give honors to all the divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, etc. I give honors to Brother Marcus Garvey, who did warn and stir up the people for the coming of the prophet, as John the Baptist did for Jesus, to bring us our nationality and birthrights. I give honors to all the past Supreme Grand Advisors and moderators. I give honor to the former Grand Sheikh moderator. I give honors to the present Grand Sheikh moderator, Brother R. Jones Bey, and all the official staff of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I give honors to the two flags combined, the Moorish flag, the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center, the 5 points representing love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I give honors to the American flag. I give honors to my parents, my grandparents, Brother G. Cook Bay, Brother I. Cook Bay, and Sister M. Cook Bay, who did walk and talk with the Holy Prophet and was his friend all the way to the end. I give honors to the Moorish oil, teas, and compound Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought forth to help us with any ailments to help save us. I shall be reading from the Moorish literature. Salvation, unity, Moorish literature. Salvation sign has a Moorish sign, the crescent and the star. And unity is the hand press. Us becoming one, uniting. Moorish Science Temple of America Incorporated, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, founder, Noble Drew Ali, the prophet and founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, to redeem the people from their sinful ways. We all need to be redeemed. And when we become conscious, we will be able to redeem ourselves and assist our brothers and sisters by helping them redeem themselves. I should be reading from page 10. What is Islam? Islam is a very simple faith. It requires man to recognize his duties toward God Allah, his creator, and his fellow creatures. It teaches the supreme duty of living at peace with one's surroundings. It is predominantly the religion of peace. The very name Islam means peace. The goal of a man's life, according to Islam, is peace with everything, peace with Allah, and peace with man. So each holy and divine prophet came forth and spoke of peace on earth, goodwill to men. So we all know that sometimes the media and sometimes other people and other influences may cause Islam to look like it is not a good religion. In actuality, it means peace. So when you think of Muslims and true Moors and true Muslims or Muslims, their Islamic faith is about peace. We are for peace, not for destruction. My assistant wanted me to read something from the Essence magazine. It is called Deserving of Joy. Let's talk. A letter from the editor. Deserving of Joy. When incidents of police brutality and racial profiling occur, they can lead us to question whether anyone understands our humanity. Let me assure you, dear Essence family, that black, so-called blacks, Asiatics, lives do indeed matter. Our very existence on this earth, granted to us by the Creator, is all the permission we need to take up space on this planet. Therefore, we cannot allow the bigotry and hatred of those threatened by the existence to prevent us from assuming our rightful inheritance. As the sister had my assistant definitely informed me this was a beautiful measure and thought process through the editor-chief, Vanessa K. DeLuca. She's the editor-in-chief from Essence, and she wanted me to mention this to let us know that we all are becoming conscious. So on every level, not just Islamic level, but any level, that we are all about love and unity. And yes, we do need to be treated fairly. We are the creators and the makers of our own. We are the first people on this planet. We did create math, science, architect, astronomy, etc. Without the Moors' contribution, there would be nothing here. We are the one. So we need to come together, be gods and goddesses, and unite as one. Peace.
Appreciate that particular contribution to the Think Tank show, sister. That was the Essence magazine, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Essence got to send us a check. No. Right. Essence magazine. I just want y'all to know I do take cash too. No, I'm just messing with y'all. I appreciate that, sister.
All is well.
We got Sister Carla Gunther with us today. How you doing, sister?
I'm blessed.
That's good, bro. I was sitting back. You know, I've been plotting, and strategizing, trying to figure out what's the best way to get this message out there to our people and be effective. Because what I want the people to be engaged in this particular topic. It's a lot of times we have topics and it's just for educating you, and you really don't have to do anything but write certain things down and take notes and do research and Google and see if we bring it to you facts. But in this particular instance, I need for y'all to be, I want to engage you. I want us to be motivated and get behind this particular topic because, and this particular book, because it's important. And I'm grateful that you was willing to even share this story with us, because it's different. And Sister Terry and myself, we was talking about a few things, and she was, when I say certain things and I bring certain people to the table, she have a certain look in her face and her eyes, and I've been dealing with her long enough to know what that look means. And she had that look when we had you on and we was talking about it, and she was like, okay, I'm going to give you kudos, but I'm not really finna give you kudos because we need more of that. You know, so she was extremely grateful, and she was she's motivated behind that as well. So I like to allow her to do the interviewing factor of this particular program, because she does a much better job than me, because I like to ramble. I like to talk. And a lot of times it take away from the things that need to be said. So I'm definitely just going to allow you to say what you've been thinking about over the last couple of weeks, because you know you was coming back, and you're coming back again and again and again. So you might as well gear up. And my condolences go out to you and your family for your loss.
Thank you.
And we just wanted you to know that we did have you in our prayers. So
Thank you.
what's
Appreciate
going
it.
on, sister?
I'm happy to be here today. I thank you for having me. I want to continue the conversation. I think we left off last time with dealing with the residual effects of childhood sexual abuse. I was talking to my sister here regarding PTSD and
That's post-traumatic stress.
post-traumatic
disorder.
stress disorder, correct, and the effects of it, and how I think a lot of people tend to believe that when children have been sexually abused, that they can just get over it. If you make the decision in your mind to get over it, you can. And that's the mistake that society has made people believe, because people will suppress it and think that as long as I don't think about it, as long as I don't talk about it, then it's not there. I'm okay, I'm fine, but you're not. Because anytime you deal with trauma, trauma isn't what happened to you. Trauma is what lives in you. That trauma...
Say that again.
Trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what lives in you. And that trauma will remain to live in you and will continue to grow inside of you. And that's what I'm calling emotional cancer. Because you're emotionally, you are not stable as you think you are, because it's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect pretty much everything you do. And you're not realizing that it's affecting you. It's affecting your behavior. It's affecting how you think of yourself. It's affecting your self-worth, your value. And so it's going to affect your decision-making process as well.
And speaking of it affecting your relationships, you were talking earlier about when you when you met your husband. He had a daughter already
Yes.
that he had full custody of, who he was taken
Correct.
care of. And because of your experience, because of the trauma that you experienced, you took on a role, fortunately, as a protector.
Correct.
And talk about what you were.
Well, the first situation happened when he and I first started dating. She was 5 years old, and we went to the movies together, and she wanted to sit in this lap, and she sat in this lap watching the movie, and I automatically tensed up, and I went into a PTS episode where I got so uncomfortable that by the time we left the movies, I had to say something to him about it. And I kind of attacked him,
Wow.
you know, and it almost destroyed our relationship
That's something.
because he didn't know what I had been through. And so what saved us was I told him what I had
Okay.
been through. And then I realized myself that I was imagining things in my mind because of and that's what PTSD does.
And for background, not to assume that everyone is familiar with your story, we're just learning. At this point, you're about, how old were you at this time?
Well, at the point that I began to be sexually abused.
Well, at the time when you met your
Well,
husband,
I was 40 years old.
you were
at
40,
This time, yes,
and you were sexually abused
Yes.
between the ages of 3 and
But-
12.
correct. Correct. Yes.
Okay, so,
So-
the second incident.
So the next time, by the time she was 12 years old, I became hypersensitive to their relationship. Because at 12 years old, that's when my father actually raped me. So I became very hyper to protecting her and was very guarded with their relationship and became somewhat accusatory of him when he wasn't doing anything. And that's PTSD. And so my husband himself, and that's why I say this book is not just for, it's geared for women, but it's also geared for men as well, because men that are married to women that are survivors of sexual abuse.
Yes.
Because I think it's going to help them to know how to deal with women that they're in relationship with that are survivors. My husband had to learn. He had to learn how to deal with me. He had to learn how to comfort me when I was going through those things and not get angry and not take it personal.
Exactly.
So that's a process we've gone through in our marriage.
So you know that you found the right person, someone who you
Absolutely.
could trust through the process in the
Yes.
first place, because you didn't have to tell him
Absolutely.
at all.
Absolutely.
And that's something. And can we take a moment to open up the phone lines?
Yeah, we're going to, y'all definitely know you can call in. We're going to pull up the numbers for the call in so that y'all can call in. You should see the number on the bottom of the screen as you're watching us live on television. But what I want to ask, and I want to know, is your next book going to be about how to live with someone who is a survivor of sexual assault? How to live with a spouse who is a survivor of sexual assault? Because that has to be something that has to be put out there as well, because the trauma that they have lived and that they're going through, that's within them, which is that emotional cancer,
Absolutely.
is something that the spouse has to know how to survive, or need to know how to live with or combat, or to know when it's time to hug her, know when it's time to just leave her or him alone.
Exactly.
Or when, it's certain things that is just needed as far as educating a spouse how to live and how to help a person who is living with being a survivor of sexual assault.
Absolutely. And one of the things that my husband had to understand and learn about me was that sometimes I needed a non-sexual touch. Men tend to, with their wives, when they want to be romantic, and most times a hug and kiss will grow into something else. But when a person, a survivor of sexual abuse, sometimes need to be touched in a non-sexual way, just to know that I'm loved and not feel like a sexual object unconditionally, because you've been objectified all of your life. So you need that from your husband to have that non-sexual touch. But that's a lot for a man to understand. And that was something also that he had to learn.
Yeah, because men we're wired extremely different than our women, and it's not something that it becomes cliche-ish when men are from Mars, women are from Venus, that type of thing.
That's true.
But it's actually true that we interpret love and affection differently. We express love and affection differently, and a lot of times by us living in this hypersexual society that we live in the United States of, I mean, everything is sex. I mean, they use sex to sell alcohol pads. I mean, they sell sex. They use sex
Candy.
to sell candy. They use sex to sell gas. Everything they use
Video
sex.
games.
Everything sex and or violence is used to sell that particular product, so to speak. And
And with men, the thing for a man, the way you show him you love him is sex. Men are geared to be sexual and feel that love from you in a sexual way. So that's something that's needed with them.
Right.
So it is not a thing that the woman can't fulfill that need, but he still has to understand that there's going to be times when she's going to need to feel a non-sexual touch.
I want to ask, I don't know, and I want to be as delicate with this question as possible, and I think I have a problem when dealing with certain people that's been through certain traumatic experiences, as well as people that might be disabled, and they tell you all the time, don't treat them as if they disabled, treat them like they regular people. But in this case, I'm just a little sensitive with the question that I want to ask you, but I need to ask because I think it's pertinent. The certain smells, certain environments, certain colognes, certain things, could that trigger a post-traumatic stress episode?
Absolutely. Even certain sounds. Absolutely.
And so what is it, just in case someone who is living with a survivor of sexual assault, what type of things do a person do to embrace themselves or comfort themselves when they're going through this particular episode?
Well, that's an individual thing. With people that are survivors, I always suggest that they seek counseling. And for me, what has been my saving grace, what helps me through my PTSD episodes, is my relationship with Christ and seeking God and His Word. So that has brought me where I am today, to even be able to talk about it and write about
So
it.
that's the healthy side of it.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the unhealthy side of it that eventually you came out of to embrace this healthy side with your relationship with Christ. What was that like? What did you do? How did you
I
feel?
drank.
You drunk.
I did things to numb the pain. I did things to self-medicate. My drug of choice was alcohol. I started drinking around 10 years old. I started smoking marijuana when I was 11 years old.
Okay.
But I preferred alcohol. And as I got older, alcoholism is progressive. So the older you get, the more you drink. And but I became a binge drinker. So I wasn't an everyday drinker, but when I did drink, I couldn't stop. And that's what I did to numb the pain.
Was it a cycle? Like, is it a cycle? Like, it is like something that you just go through, then you binge drink, then you come out of it, then you're able to function, and then you binge drink again, and you go into a cycle? Is it that type
No,
of
it
thing?
was when I was drinking pretty much every weekend.
Okay.
That was my binge was on the weekends. Thursday payday was the start. So it was from Thursday to Saturday.
What does it take for those who don't have the courage or don't know how to tell somebody that they've been sexually assaulted and or they are still being sexually assaulted? How do they develop that courage? Do you have any advice for them for that?
Like I said, I always recommend that people seek counseling. So the first step would be to tell someone you trust, tell a confidant, someone that you're close to that you know won't go out and tell someone else. Share it with someone. And then that point, when you're able to get that courage to tell that one person, then seek counseling.
Yeah, that is right there within itself. And I've been through it. myself, and I told my story last time you were here, where I dealt with my sexual assault from a different perspective, and the society that I come from and the world or the culture that I was a part of, it was viewed as being not macho. I was placed on a pool table. I was like anywhere from, I think I was like anywhere from 5 to 7. I can't actually remember the age. And my cousins and uncles and all those was down in the basement. They had just had a day of selling drugs, and they was ritual. It was a ritual. They'd count money on the pool table, and they smoke weed and whatever else they was getting high off of, and alcohol was involved, and they would have women there, and they always was talking about, I'm a mama's boy, because I was my mother's only child. I'm a mama's boy, and I'm gonna grow up and be a punk, or I'm gonna be this, blah blah blah. So this particular day, when they had me get on the pool table, they had the two young ladies, perform certain sex acts on me orally. And they down there, they toasting, and yeah, he ain't gonna be no punk. We know now he gonna be, that type of stuff. And it's something that was in me that caused the disdain towards certain type of women, a certain smell, those who had alcohol on their breath, those who smelled like cigarettes, those that dressed a certain way, those that walked and talked and acted and was in certain environments that I would have a trigger where I didn't like you, I didn't trust you. You was just a sex object to me. You in these streets, and you just you can be victimized, and I don't care, because that's, I viewed you as my victim, and that is how it's perpetuated, and this is how it's instilled from generation to generation, because we don't think from a male's perspective that certain things that we teach our young boys, that it's not going to grow into something that's unhealthy, because that was unhealthy. That should not have ever happened to me.
Absolutely.
No matter how much they thought I was going to be a punk or whatever, that should not have happened to me. And
that was a violation.
So I'm thinking that this is what it was to be a man.
Right. And you don't realize I'm sure you didn't title that before this time. That was sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And you didn't realize that you were being molested, because that's molestation.
Right.
And that caused damage to you. Like I said, you gained PTSD in the sense that, smells and certain looks triggered you. And we have
anger. It used to trigger anger in me. Like I used to go to what we call topless bars and stuff like that, and I was in the streets and motorcycle clubs. I was in the streets hard. And my father's side, we grew up on Dexter, and then my grandmother's side, we was on Chicago and Ward, Orange Line, Sorrento, all that area right there. And then my mother, she grew up in the Brightmoor area in the Smith Home Projects. So I was constantly around a particular environment, and I could see the anger as I look back on how I would snap from one woman to another woman, as far as how I would treat a certain type, a certain look, how I perceived them. If I perceived you as the same people that did this to me when I was young, consciously I wasn't making that decision.
Absolutely.
I wasn't just walking around like, okay, I don't like you, but subconsciously it would trigger something, and we have to understand that where those triggers are, and where they come from. And that's some things that I had to learn, as I grew, that especially when I went to prison and I stayed in there, and I went through a lot of counseling, and I studied a lot of philosophical books about certain crimes and stuff like that. And what I've learned is that this is something that is a learned behavior, but it's learned behind that particular person going through a traumatic experience. That's how it's passed down. You can't pass anything down like that cleanly. You can't just inherit this, like all of a sudden you come up with this idea that you're gonna be something. This is something this is learned behavior. And you become sick, and it becomes a psychosis. And if you don't get the help, then you're going to continue to grow into a monster that's going to perpetrate even worse crimes on human beings. And I think the best way, because what stopped me from ever wanting to rob people again or do certain things to people in life, I had to start putting myself in a position. Like, how would I like it if somebody stuck a gun in my face? How would I like it if somebody stuck a gun in my mama's face? And once I put myself as the victim, then I develop what we call in that particular field of victim empathy. And this is what a person has to do. They have to, would you want somebody raping your little daughter? Would you like somebody fondling your little daughter? How would you feel if it was yours? And when we start doing those type of things, then you'll start treating people the way that you want to be treated. You know, but love is
If
the
you
only
have that capacity.
right, and
And
love
some
is the only
people
saving the
still
world.
don't have that
They don't have the
capacity.
capacity
Exactly.
because they sociopath.
And see
Right,
nothing wrong with
exactly.
it.
Yeah, they
Exactly.
sociopath. Like, and in most cases, the person they put those particular child molesters in the category of sociopaths. They put people who rape women on the corner and snatch them in alleys. Those are psychopaths. So you can't put them all in the same category. I understand, but at the same time, if we don't have the education on what it is to look for, because the pedophile is the most manipulative,
right.
and they will look for a woman who has a child,
Sure will.
and they
Seek
will
a
go after the
relationship.
woman. They
That's
will
right.
seek the relationship with the
That's
woman.
right.
They will learn her weaknesses just to get to the child.
Absolutely.
And women, you need to understand that. A lot of times, it's good to not only just screen him from, is his teeth right? You know, do he wear good shoes? Do he smell good? Is he well groomed? You have to watch how he or she interacts with your child.
And now let me say this, as you say that, my mother, she was a teenage mother that desperately in 1962 wanted a husband. When my father approached her and began dating her, one of her attractions to him was his interest in me. And I believe from that very part that he was with her because of his interest in me.
He was
And
grooming.
she right, because she would even always tell stories how when I was 1 and 2 years old, how he would go in the store on the dress rack and just pick up like a whole section of dresses and purchase from me. It was always all about me. You know, he would, money and everything was always about, and that caused her very early in their relationship to be jealous of me.
Right.
And that jealousy grew and grew and grew.
As a toddler, you're already the other woman.
Exactly, as a toddler, I was already the other one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, you hear the stories when women find out, and I'm not specifically talking about your mother, but when women find out that the child was being molested, they equate that with being they were having sex with my man.
Absolutely.
Can't no child have sex
Sex with
with no
you.
grown man.
Absolutely.
I don't care if she is 13, 14, 15 years old. She is not able to give consent.
She's still a child.
She's a
Absolutely.
child.
Absolutely.
And so this was not a relationship.
Right. She's not a seductress.
So
Exactly.
she, you know, they turn on their own child thinking
Yes.
that,
Yes.
you know, you just wanted my man or you want what I want. And that twisted way of thinking is prevalent,
Absolutely.
you know, so.
It is. And
yeah.
my mother became emotionally abusive. When you asked me before about Precious, if I could relate or did I think that was something that was extreme or exaggerated, as I told you before, no, absolutely not. Precious was very real to me. When I watched that movie, I cringed, and I cringed because it was so real, and I still believe to this day that was someone's story. I believe that someone wrote that story and wrote it as a fiction, but it was real because it was very real for me. The only part about that story that wasn't true to my life was the physical abuse.
Right.
But every other way in that relationship, I could identify with.
Yeah.
Even the fantasies that Precious had when she would just space out. I dealt with that my entire life, spacing out and going somewhere else in my mind, because what happens is how that develops is when you're actually being abused, I would leave myself. I would separate myself from my body while the incident was happening, and that becomes that develops in your mind. It becomes an automatic way of survival,
You just separate.
and it just happens, and it will happen as your body develops, because you have to understand when children are experiencing trauma, the brain is developing, because your brain is still developing, it's developing around the trauma.
You're learning.
Absolutely. And so you begin to and that's how a lot of people develop different personalities and things like that.
Okay.
However, fortunately, God kept me from that, but I still had, and as I get older and become more trained to bring myself out of it, I don't have as many times of spacing out, but that's been a part of my life.
Now, did you find that at different ages, at different stages in your life, you would revisit things that had occurred
Yes.
from a different perspective?
Yes, depending on what was going on in my life, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
With me, when I was still having cycles, premenstrual syndrome became hell for me.
Okay.
So my PMS may have been different from yours because that's when the PTSD and every emotional problem inside of me arose.
It's like amplified.
Right, everything was amplified.
Okay. And now that is what I'm seeing here is that there's no one type of, for lack of a better word, victimizer. They can come in all shapes and sizes. And the same thing with those who are survivors.
Yes.
You can have any number of experiences.
And I like to dispel a myth that everyone that's been sexually abuses.
Okay.
That's absolutely
Definitely
not
heard
the
that.
truth.
Mm-hmm.
I know several women that have been sexually abused. And the opposite is true. They become very protective of their children and everybody else's
Like
children.
you.
Like myself, absolutely. So that's not true. Being a pedophile is a whole different animal.
Right.
Being a pedophile is an attraction. You have this instinctive attraction to children. And it's just another perversion that the enemy has out there.
Now, is it a desire to hurt or control?
No, it's a desire. It's a sexual attraction, like bestiality and things like that. It's
Okay.
a sexual attraction to children.
And
it's
then so that's the argument, and what she's saying
Yeah.
is the argument, the clinical argument. How do you fix somebody who is sexually attracted to little
Absolutely.
children? It's
That's-
like I'm attracted to women, so you can't fix me.
right, exactly.
Right.
You
Exactly.
can't fix me.
Exactly.
You
And
can't
that's-
make me like nothing else.
Exactly, and that's why they say that pedophiles are not treatable. That for that very reason, because that's their innate attraction is to children.
So would that be why in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, I'm not sure which volume, but for a moment they had removed pedophilia from the book as a deviant behavior.
Yes,
They removed it.
unfortunately.
Yeah, but you got to look, and I don't want to go.
That
I
was
really
DSM
don't.
4.
I really
Four?
don't.
It was
Yeah,
four.
I don't want to
Four.
deal with. I don't want it to turn into a race thing. But culturally,
Yeah.
a lot of things is dealt with differently from the powers that be, people that have the power because of the. But I want to say something about what she said. She made a key point about not all victims or survivors of sexual assault end up being someone who sexually assaults somebody else. But a lot of people who are survivors of sexual assault constantly sexually assault themselves over and over again with their promiscuity.
Yes.
I tried,
Now
I
that-
tried to pronounce it right.
That's okay.
Promiscuity.
That's
Every time,
okay. Promiscuity.
Every time I try to get up to that word right there,
But what
just
can't get happens
it.
is with anyone that's being abused, when they don't get help for themselves, when the abuse stops, then you take over and abuse yourself.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens.
Wow.
And you allow yourself to get into dysfunctional relationships, and you are drawn to men, just like you said, and not on a conscious level, but you're drawn to men that are going to abuse you in some form or fashion.
Right.
You're
You get
facilitating
feeling-
your own
exactly, and
abuse.
you do become promiscuous because you're looking for that love and attention from a man.
Okay.
Islam, I have
Because
a question.
Yes.
What about, preventive measures for future generations to help break the cycle? Because I remember, 4th or 5th grade when it was introduced to the classroom, and a good touch, a bad touch. And
Yes.
so, we should have as well, and is in the home.
Yes.
Since
Absolutely.
it's happening in the home, we should have as well as in the home
Absolutely.
that both parents should be able to
Absolutely.
speak freely to the children.
One of the preventative measures is to, when you talk to your children, I believe as soon as they are able to say words, you teach your children their actual body parts. You don't call a woman or her vagina a pocketbook or her cookie. You call it a vagina. You say it what it is. He has a penis. He doesn't have a wee-wee. And you name it what it is and let them, because if someone touched them in those areas, they can specify where they were touched. No, it's not my cookie, and you can't confuse that.
Right.
You can't
No
confuse
language handicaps.
Exactly.
Right.
You say what it is,
Right.
and therefore, when they say what it was, it is what it is.
Right.
So that's one of the things you teach your children to know the names of their body parts, and you teach them that their body is not to be touched without their permission.
We can't be tiptoeing around
Absolutely,
that
you
particular.
cannot.
We can't.
You
We don't
cannot.
have time to be playing games.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
especially with certain topics.
Stakes
I mean,
are
this
too
world
high.
that we living in is real, and it ain't gonna play no games,
That's
and
right.
it ain't gonna hold no punches. And it comes a point where you're going to have to deal with it the same way to prepare them for the roughness of this world.
Absolutely.
Because I don't care if you're living in Rochester Hills, you're living in Dearborn Heights, you're living in Highland Park. This issue cross all racial lines,
That's
all
right. And every
ethnicities, and all
economical-
exactly.
that's right. It
All
does.
economical lines.
Lines.
It's no, you
It
know.
does.
So it's some.
And there's no face to a pedophile.
No
Right.
face.
You spoke on before, that person could be an upstanding person in the community that everybody honors and loves and thinks great, and this person's a pedophile.
That's right.
So it doesn't have a face. So your job is to protect your children by preparing them and arming them with knowledge.
I learned something. Some weeks ago. I was doing some studying about child molestation. Then I started studying about child porn, sex trafficking, and all that. And what some of the things that I learned took me to tears. And one of the things that I'm going to tell the people is this: people that know about child porn, they don't know that when they get done with those children, they don't know what they do to them. And that is, they kill them. They kill the children. And that's because they can't take the children to no hospital and say, fix this little girl's vagina because it's blew out because I've been having her make movies for child porn. So they die. They get murdered. They kill these babies. You know, so it's it
Well,
get worse than that.
And but remember the case of John Bonet?
You got a call.
That-
You got a call.
Oh, okay.
Caller, you on there with the Think Tank Show. What's your name and what city you calling from?
Assalamu alaikum, is this me?
Yes, it is. What's your name and what city you calling from?
Okay, my name is Leslie. And I've always watched you, even when you were bringing your voice from where you were away. And I always liked the topics. I'm a first-time caller. I'm more of a cerebral person, so I listen a lot. And I just want to thank you for what you were doing, talking about this very difficult topic, and talking about it so passionately that I know I'm learning so much, and it's making me realize why I can trigger and certain things make me kind of go off. And just by watching you, I am reflecting back on the abuse I suffered. And then I realized the mistakes. I mean, it was amazing how I was pretty much rebirthed watching your show. And I just want to thank you for, I'm just going to say, for helping to free me and getting me to understand why I tick. And I'm just overwhelmed with joy, the knowledge that you are putting out on these airwaves, because your conversation is intellectual. I don't feel shame. It makes me I feel great that I'm not alone. And brother, when you were talking about what happened to you on the pool table, for me it was a relief. It was like, oh, it happens to men too. I thought it was just a girl thing. So I just want to encourage you to continue to challenge us, to continue to drop knowledge on us. Whether you get calls or not, I'm out here listening. And I was just led to call you to let you know to keep at it. Thank you. I hope next week it's part 2, because this topic needs to be constantly discussed, because pretty much everyone I know, it's happened to.
Well,
And no one wants to talk about it.
I really
But everyone wants
appreciate.
to say,
I really
why I
appreciate
drink.
your call, and I don't know about next week, but it's definitely a part 3. This is part 2. We started a couple
Oh,
weeks
my
ago,
God.
so this is part 2. So part 3 is coming up shortly. But she's gonna have a book signing at 90s Knowledge Cafe, and it's gonna be a speaking engagement as well, where she's gonna talk to the people. She's gonna engage the community, and it's gonna be October the 9th. At 12511 Woodward Avenue at 90s Knowledge Cafe at October the 9th. So she will be promoting this book, every week. We'll be here promoting that. So, I mean, this is something that we're dedicated to here at the Think Tank. At least I am, So, and it's a lot of different other topics that I'm dedicated to as well. And we only got a couple minutes left, and I appreciate your call. And tune in to us next week, same time, same place. Yeah.
God bless you.
God bless you as
God
well.
bless you.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your call. You have a nice day.
Islam. But I wanted to say, I've been abused on every level, and you should seek out some type of therapy or counseling, whatever you feel comfortable with, to make yourself get through. Because like you said, you get triggers and things that may cause you to have PTSD. And everybody, even the simplest things can cause PTSD. Being in a car accident, watching somebody get beat up, being like sitting there watching someone having sex can cause PTSD. You're sexually abused as that, but there's like the Haven and other avenues that you could utilize for sexual abuse.
I really hate that we have to bring this to an end, and I hate I had to cut her off, but we got to get ready to get up out of here. But I just want to say, what is one of your favorite passages from Jesus to help give somebody some encouragement out there?
Romans chapter 8, verse 28. All things work together for the good of those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose.
Well, y'all heard it from the sister Carla Guntner. Y'all, you gotta support this particular book right here, Overcoming Emotional Cancer. Tell them where they can get it.
Oh, you can get it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and Barnes & Noble stores, and most places that books are sold. You're able to get Overcoming Emotional Cancer, and it's available on ebook as well, on Kindle and iTunes.
Yeah, well, that's been the day. This has been another episode of the Think Tank Show. We're here right here on TV 33 WHPR. Tune in to us next week, same place, same time, from 5 to 6. We live, y'all. Listen, go out here and support this book. Tell somebody, y'all, if you went through it, talk about it. Get it out. Don't keep it in, because it ain't nothing but a cancer. Got to cut that cancer out. So, appreciate you, sister.
Thank you.
Love and peace.
Gotta get away from that